it's kind of hard to think about like one flesh, we have two separate bodies. But I think that where that comes across is this ability to see how we're so unique, but then God has brought us together to be this perfect team. Most people, and the people who are listening to this, who don't know frustrations or opportunities, can see their spouses like, oh my gosh, there she is again, or there he is again doing that thing.
Welcome to the Leveraging Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gearhart, and every time that we come together, it's about helping you work less, make more, and with the margin that you continue to get, apply that to an incredible life's mission and purpose and being a fantastic leader inside of your family. Rob Dayton here with me as usual. Rob, thanks for joining today here.
Great to see you, Jeff. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to be with you. It was an exciting weekend. We just wrapped up another Dream Master where we got to bring couples together. And in that process, we're encouraging them to say, hey, have a horizon for yourself that goes past your children, past your career, and think, what's the purpose of our marriage together? And if we can be living our dream and pursuing dreams, that this would be the main content of our collaboration together, that we would be going after certain dreams or cataloging dreams as someday we'd like to. And when this happens, we'll start. Actually, Rob, man, I want to ask you about something, because we were covering this last week as we were looking over some content that you were building around marriage. Could you talk about the unique DNA of two people becoming one and their collaboration and the power that's there? I think you've got a really unique, interesting take on that.
Well, it's thank you for that, asking that, and I'm always excited to hear about your Dream Master weekends, and we try to do that with couples, and I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to position them to what God says is one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to think about like one flesh. We have two separate bodies, but I think that where that comes across is this ability to see how we're so unique, but then God has brought us together to be this perfect team. Most people, and the people who are listening to this, who don't know frustrations or opportunities, can see their spouses like, oh my gosh, there she is again, or there he is again doing that thing. That is so frustrating. But the bottom line is, and the opportunity is that those opposites fit so neatly in a package of productivity and accomplishment and ability to dream and talents that can come together for remarkable things.
Yeah. When we're saying in our promise that there's an ability to work less and make more, and then to go after the pursuit of being incredible in your family, incredible in life's calling that you've got, that it seems like what you're really suggesting to me is to try to do more and just try to stuff more in, but staying with the concept that being intentional and strategic and deciding that you're going to get leverage means that every opportunity for me to be smarter actually allows for me to not just brute force some of these things. And when we think about marriage, driving something that's intentional is actually the leverage point. Because if we just run at it as, I don't know, what do you think? Or let's just hang out. Or if we go on date night and we have sex and we've got kids, that somehow that's just going to equate to peace, happiness, and joy of some kind. And yet we find ourselves wanting. And so the wanting and the gap there is, how do you get more with less? And I really think it's about being on adventure. And so when we do these Dream Master weekends, it's about setting ablaze the adventure that would be between you. And in some cases, the dreams that God has given us is uniquely mine and not hers, or hers and not mine. And understanding that dynamic of saying, let's manage these dreams like musicians grab up little licks of music together, and then we'll find pieces of songs and put them into one beautiful song as we keep talking about the things that we're looking forward to in the future, and we're designing them for implementation. And so that's the outcome of working through strategic intention for my marriage, is to say, what do we want in the end. And then to imagine that God's got dreams, and then to connect to that and say, okay, God, what do you want? What's your intention? And we know that his business is all about helping people to know him and love him and be in relationship with him, and then to love other people, and then to teach other people how to love him, know him, and love other people. I mean, this is the message. This is what Jesus came to do and start a revolution through people like us. And so when we can connect to God's dream, now we're in a power center of collaboration that says, hey, everything that we want to do, from a dream vacation to a dream house to a dream anything, if we will connect to that opportunity, what amazing things could happen.
It's totally true. And what's really interesting about that process is that, it's the how, what, and why. Most people don't agree on the how, and particularly in marriage with their differences, the focus is on the how is where the frustration is. What gets a little bit more clear. But when you call attention to why a marriage exists, and specifically that is usually born through the experiences we have as a couple, the challenges we went through, the triumphs that we experienced, it's really easy to cast a vision that we can agree on that's around why. What is the thing that we want to see happen in the world, in our influence. Couples can agree on that, and then you just work backwards. And then what the brilliance is, you find out that the how is actually our differentiation of unique ability, and that we can come together to hit that why. And I think that that's what you've seen and I've seen. It gets really exciting with couples, because that's when they see that the magic can happen, and then also appreciate what they bring to the table to get to reach that purpose in their marriage.
Yeah. I mean, purpose in marriage is seemingly clear. My purpose is to be in love and to have needs met mutually. I mean, I'm given sort of the sort of basic mindset. Maybe it was just mine, but this was my basic mindset. And then it kept leaving me wanting or short in some way. And that gap is what calls us back to, well, is there more? And could there be more? And what would more look like? Do I just need counseling? Do we need coaching of some kind so that she can hear me or understand me, or he can hear me and know what I'm really thinking? All of those things, and working through them. It's the beauty of the imperfection of two people that are in a mutual submission relationship that says, your needs before my needs. How can I serve you? And then the strain of that may never change them, but it's meant to change me. I know that you get to coach guys like I do on this subject, and it's one of those interesting things where we look at this in the relationship space and think, well, is the opportunity then she's never going to change? And well, I mean, that's possible. Your partner may never change, but the growth of and the opportunity of this game is to be at it where your needs before my needs leads us to a place where I'm trusting that in the end, even if you don't change, that I will be able to be strong, grow, and love you no matter what.
That's so good. I love that. I love that you're talking about that, because some of our listeners might be thinking, purpose of marriage, I can't even get along. Like you're talking about this higher order. So I love that you brought in kind of the stages to that point. The first one you're saying is that we've got to become Christ to her and give her a visual of what the Father's love would be, completely accepting of your status right now and celebrating the future perfect. It's interesting. God thinks in future perfect. So he's always seen as this future perfect. And then he responds to us in love in that future perfect picture. And that's what we needed to come alongside with our partners and see them that way in order to lay before the possibility that they would transform. And I love that you said, it might not happen. And then your spouse becomes a cross that you bear for a certain amount of time. And in heaven, you're not married. So, do that well. But then for the blessed, we moved to that next level where, and I saw this in my own marriage, where my spouse really transformed because the pressure was off. No longer was I demanding that she be something different. I was embracing who she was and loving. And that gave her the possibility of transformation so that we could get to a different place where we could talk about what is an on purpose marriage, what is our purpose to the world, what is our purpose to the church as a couple. And so I love that you're talking about those stages because our listeners might be thinking, where am I in that stage and how do I get to the place where I actually have that conversation?
Right, right. Well, so much is mindset. And I loved last week when we were talking about this subject, is that you were even saying, Rob, that just understand, even if it is your cross to bear for a period of time, 10, 20 years, whatever's left, 30, who knows, time is so short. And the more that we comprehend, what Moses wrote in Psalm 90, teach me to number my days so that I gain a heart of wisdom, is to realize, it's a short period. There are all sorts of challenges, and I don't want to get mixed up in waiting for perfection before I move forward. And that's one of the points that we want to talk about today, is the need for moving forward. The first move here is that, let's imagine then that you've got dreams and that you're starting to map those out as a couple and as an individual towards being intentional towards achieving things. There's a need for us to decide, okay, I'm not going to wait for the perfect scenario. It's like I was telling the group that was here over the weekend, is that if I waited until life was perfect to have children, I would have never had kids, right? There's never a perfect time. And there's all those things in our life, but the more that we become accomplished, the more success we have, the less, it seems that we should have to take risk. And so we just try to de-risk every part of our life. And then we start to say, well, until the conditions are perfect, I'm not going to go forward. And I just get stuck.
That's it's totally true. And it's paralyzing. It's just paralyzing. So what in your dream master process, what do you think is the thing that really is the switch that you throw that gets a couple to start thinking in the dream space, in a transformative space, and get themselves away from, the current reality about what happened this week and the conflict between them?
Actually, I think that the switch gets thrown when we remember. And by that, the more that we spend time remembering why we're in love, why we got married in the first place, some of the best hits of our story together over the years, it helps us to reignite the. Yes, that's right. That's why we tied our boats together. That's why we decided that we were committed until death. And because of that commitment, that there is something here that's special. And whether that feeling is the same as when we first met or not, that it can be rekindled. And part of the work is remembering and then recommitting and saying, let's push past our feelings and imagine something greater than what I see right now. And that's the thing with leadership in general, is that we have things that are on the inside that we want to see come onto the outside, but we want someone else to bring it to the outside for us. But if we would just say for our marriage, you know what, I'm just not going to stay the same. And I don't want to stay the same. And I want to have a greater vision. And let's get something that would make our hearts excited like it used to be, and put it out in front of us. And I know it's on the inside because I'm discussing it and we're conceiving these ideas together. And then we're going to start moving forward purposefully. That mix of remember, and then using that as a proof point to, I do love you. I know that we've got something. If I'm not already, I'm just doubling down on the commitment. And now we're going to do something that maybe people would say is a little crazy. And I like to encourage crazy, because I think that when you get to the edge of this isn't going to work unless God shows up, we're in the right space. We're at the moment with which we're jumping out to say, okay, God, I know that this won't happen without you. So now I'm in a place where faith is going to be engaged, and we're going to be able to build another story where we will add to the collection of things to remember.
That is so good. I love that. Because so it's kind of in pairs, because you kind of have to always look back, see what God did, And then that's going to get you to your future. It's really interesting that I don't know if you've heard of the theory of the end of history, but it's this
No.
psychological. It's a psychological thing that we have in our humanness, which looks back. When we look back, we see these bumps that we got. We see how it got better. Maybe, for a Christian, that's where God really showed up and there was a miracle. And we look back and we see those bumps, and we're like, here's where we are now in life. But then for some reason, we don't have the capability of intrinsically thinking in the future, all that same trajectory is going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the theory of the end of history is we're flattening out now. So to cure that, I love that. What you're saying is we've got to look back. We've got to actually remember, where did God show up in our marriage? Where did he show up in our leadership? I don't know what that song is that says he's going to do it again. He's going to do it again. I mean, it's obvious he's going to do it again. So that positions you to dream into more of the impossible realm, where God has to show up because you first look back to see where he did in fact show up.
Yeah. Well, I remind people often, and I'm reminding myself too, is that, the greatest antidote to apathy and addiction is adventure. And the more that I allow myself to get overly addicted to comfort or coping, and I start to just want things to happen without my leaning in, it's when these needs to cope grow. And if I'm coping, I have to ask myself, well, why? And so being on adventure is the thrill with which, and adventure comes in different ways. I think that when we talk to the man's heart, I think we have a great desire for adventure, probably some danger in there at some level. I know since I was young, whether it was playing with gasoline and matches to, sticking things in electrical sockets, I wanted to see like what was the limit and when could I get in some real trouble. There is that sort of DNA to us, but when it gets engaged for the right things and to be doing it in a way with which I would be on adventure with you, my love, my partner in life, that we could be just vitalized. Our marriage could be vitalized, and we've got to keep our hearts in hope. And so we've got to be able to sign up for the adventure with which both of us are going to be kept in hope. And so that's going to be something that I have to lead in and manage in myself and others, is to always be filling people with hope, so that we don't, that's the gasoline for the dream, is that I keep the engine running so long as hope is high. And the moment that I wake up in the morning and I look at my soul's gas gauge of how much hope do I have, and is that tripped into fear, that's a needed work of the leader, of the husband, of each of us in this marriage partnership, is to keep hope high. And when the other one's tank is getting low, to pray for scripture and for me to encourage, so that hope tank is full. Because when that thing's down, we get pulled over, and we can't move forward. So it's an important part of recognizing the need to stay in hope while we jump out into adventure.
That can be really practical for people who are listening in, because, and the way I would describe that, a question you could ask yourself is, if I've got the hope, asking yourself, measuring, do I have the hope? Do I have the right insight for the dream or for moving forward? And that is what I always call proof of leadership, is what's your imagination? Show me your imagination space. I can tell you how you're feeling. I can tell you where you're going, because focus is feeling, focus is destination.
Wow.
I always like to use the analogy, like when I'm mountain biking, if I'm focused on the rocks that I don't want to hit, that's when I hit them. and when I'm focused on the path, the line that I need to go, and just ignore the big rocks, I don't hit them. So what is your imagination space? You talk about adventure. Guys who start fantasizing about girls and pornography, many times they just want adventure. They want to be living on the edge of their seat. So we have to, it starts with imagination. If that is proof of leadership, we need to think, okay, what is the new imagination I can have today that is a bigger story, that is even more risky than, I think there's risk in pornography, there's risk in getting caught in an adultery. guys have to exercise their risk in healthy ways, in heaven centric ways. And that needs to be done in their marriage and relationships so that the dreams we're cultivating will fulfill the man's risk factor when it comes to adventure. So I totally think that is so cool. And I think imagination is a practical way for us to think about it as we're trying to steer ourselves toward a purposeful marriage, a marriage that's going to work, and then it's not going to be sidelined by other things.
The opportunity for me to invite my spouse into dreaming, it can also be something that seems impossible for your spouse. And I've seen this, by the way, in men and women, so it's not limited to one gender. But the point of the matter is that when one of us is the dreamer and the other one isn't, that there's going to be a need to work towards allowing for the dreams that the one who has seemingly, or they think in their mind, less dreams, to open up to the opportunity of, hey, what do you want when the kids are gone someday? Hey, what do you want when this career time frame is done and the season is ended and you're going into the next? What will it look like? And the more that I can stay curious and start to ask those questions, especially I think in safety, of course, but over date night, it's just a wonderful way to talk about the future and say, what do you want? What would be the greatest outcome at that stage? The more that we've spent time remembering and talking about the great things and filling up with that, and then looking forward, the more that I think that we're in the kind of collaboration that both of us need is to have a hope. Now, when I say that to the follower of Christ, you and I would both say yes. I mean, Jesus is our hope. Double clicking on that or going deeper into the detail of what hope do we have in Jesus, not only in eternity, which is going to be amazing, but also in the hope of what we're going to be seeing happen in our lives. I mean, there's a life by default, a life by design. Life by default is that, cork in the river that's getting blown around by every water current that's out there, sort of victim to or subject to the waves, the wind. And there is the design with which you understand the current, the wind, you're anticipating those things, and you don't wait for them to happen to you. You're already ahead of the curve of thinking about the seasons, the time frame with which this is actually going to happen. And now having that, I'm already anticipating them. I'm designing for when that happens. And by the time they show up, I was expecting it and we were expecting it. And we've been building dreams that may have been things to do now, or dreams that really needed to be pushed into the later stages. But because we'd been doing it and we've been nurturing it, we've been talking about it, not just financially, but which is an important dynamic of the planning, but really in detail. I mean, when we can spend time in the space of vision or dreams of any kind in our leadership across any place with which we get to lead, the more that I can give you detail down to what color are the walls, what do the seats look like in the rooms that we're in, the more that I build that detail, I build a compelling picture with which I want that. And God, would you allow that? And I'm hoping for that because I've spent the time to build the detail with which it would be like, okay, this is something that's so compelling. I can see it. And I'm a visual guy. I really like to draw things out conceptually so that having that picture in front of me, I can be thinking, praying for, and moving towards that as a real goal that's really almost real today.
That's so cool. Yeah. And then it kind of gets back to that, what is your capacity, your to dream, to imagine, and where do you spend that headspace, and do you have a sanctified imagination in that you're dreaming alone as a leader and with your spouse in a way that knows that God is the God of impossibility and that he is going to do more than you can ask for or imagine. And then so it's kind of like, are you going to outdream God? How are you going to do that and place things that are adventurous and full of hope and get your relationship excited to move forward rather than stagnating?
Yeah. Today, what we've been after is to talk about the dream space, the vision space, the one with which, whether it's for me or for us as a couple, we can be vitalizing our future, anticipating the seasons, and living with a hope as a fuel source to push us forward, to commit to moving forward is the next big part of this. Would you take a minute to just talk about the need for commitment and just that as a first move in the jumping out?
Oh yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of people think being prepared is the first thing that you need to do when you start something, or you need to, first we need to have everything has to be in place before we say yes. And that's a radical mistake. Because what happens is that will paralyze you from moving forward. And in the conversation and talking about couples, one of us is probably going to be a little bit less comfortable with throwing caution to the wind and just saying, hey, here's what we're going to do by next year. But it really is going to be that commitment to do that thing that is going to drive all the preparation, the strategy, and getting your stuff together for that moment. So when we think about this, it's so vital for our listeners, for us as couples, for us as individuals and leaders, for us to think we have to commit. So think about that thing you want to commit to. You have the dream. Okay, wow, this would be amazing if this could happen. Okay, let's commit to it. Let's pick a date. And then we're going to work backwards. We're going to, in the Dream Master process, we're going to make the obstacles our friends. What are all the obstacles that will happen to that for us to get to that commitment that we're making? And then comes the strategy behind that commitment.
Yeah. I think for the commitment, whether it's the documents that need to get signed, the first check that gets written, whatever that move is, so that you can know that the boat is in the water, we're actually moving forward, that we've moved from concept to commitment. That's a critical first step. So you've gotten the memory of why you're in love. You've got the dream with which you've started to design, and now the commitment to start moving forward, because that we don't want to get ourselves or our spouses excited about something with which we're half-hearted about, or we're just sort of talking and not moving forward. So that important piece is the moment with which we say, let's go. God, if you're with us, who can be against us? So let's go. That is the first move in moving forward. Hey, for our listeners and for this time, it's always about helping you to get leverage in your marriage and everything that you do. I hope that this has been an encouraging discussion for you to be thinking about what dreams do we have, what memories do we have, and what is God calling us into the future. I'm Jeff Gearhart here with Rob Dayton. We're grateful to be able to speak to you. If you have enjoyed this episode, would you please share it? Would you comment in the comment section? We get to broadcast this across many platforms, and every time that you share it or like it, give it a rating, it gives us an opportunity to get this out to more people. All right. Grateful for you. Thank you for this time. God bless you.